How's it going, everyone? It's true what they say, you never know what you have until it's gone. In the gaming world, that would likely amount to the Electronic Entertainment Expo, or E3 for short. And yeah, I definitely knew that's what E3 stood for and didn't just look it up while writing the script. Skipping over quite a lot because it's easy to ramble on forever about, in March of 2023 the event was cancelled due to a lack of, quote, sustained interest, and later that year E3 would announce that it would no longer organize future events. The biggest impact of losing E3 is the fact that indie teams no longer have such a big stage to announce their titles, as many people were watching for the big three companies, and all three of those companies can do really whatever they want in order to gain attention. But in between these mega announcements that they would make, you could catch a glimpse of a game that stood out and potentially spark interest in something that would have likely fallen to the wayside. This past weekend I was lucky enough to get access to IGN Live that is seemingly trying to fill this void. This being the premiere year for this new event made it a little special, as there is a chance for this to become something big, but I wanted to chat a bit about my experiences, share my thoughts on the games that were showcased, including highlighting some that I thought stood out, and give my remarks on what the potential future of IGN Live is like. But before I do, if you enjoy this video, please consider leaving a like, comment, or subbing if you aren't, in order to help me continue to grow and try to keep bringing games and gaming content that might not be covered by bigger channels. There is also a Discord server for you to join where I host a weekly game night, and I'm looking to potentially stream in the future and make sure to keep the user interaction at the forefront of that experience. I'd also like to give a huge shout out to my friend Zach for getting me access to the event and letting me crash at his place, but without any further ado, let's dive into my time at IGN Live. My first impression once getting into the event was that it was a bit fumbled. The actual venue was relatively small with only 3 areas for people to go to. There was a main stage where they would have one set of scheduled developers or guests get on stage and talk about whatever it is, and that's likely what people tuned into if they watched the live stream. There was a secondary schedule of events that took place on the second floor, but spoiler alert, I rarely went up there and I never really attended one of those. But lastly, there was a showroom floor that housed all the demos and a few decorative displays. I stayed for the first showcase near the main stage, and I got kinda confused as to what the message really was. The presenter spoke directly into the camera instead of the crowd in front of them, and whenever they would cut to show a trailer for a game, the IGN crew would just hand out freebies that sort of distracted from the trailer that they were showcasing, and it was just a little messy. I also watched the Rings of Power and beginning of Vox Machina panel, but I kept feeling as if I was being pulled towards the showroom floor. Once there, I immediately jumped on 2 games they had and immediately disliked both of them, which kinda soured my taste for the event pretty rapidly. But luckily, what was to come was only to get better than what I had experienced already. During my remaining time at the event, I was able to talk to various developers and community members for a number of games, and a specific shout out goes to the teams at Knoll Games, Sumo Digital, and Secret Mode, as while other developers were present, I was able to steal away probably more time than I should have by picking their brains on all sorts of things. And this brings me to try to come up with my top 5 favorite games I was able to get hands-on experience with. I would say the one that stood out the most to me was the Rogue Prince of Persia. Developed by Evil Empire, which is the same team behind Dead Cells, and published by Ubisoft, this roguelike showed some extremely fluid and fun combat and is already out in early access. There are some complaints about the length of the game, but I honestly think it was the best platformer on display at the expo. Next up was another game published by Ubisoft and developed by Ubisoft Bordeaux, and that is the free-to-play competitive platform shooter Battlecore Arena. The gameplay loop was enticing as the standard FPS method was changed quite a lot, and it creates high-tension moments where you're just trying to save yourself from going off the edge and losing a life. With multiple game modes, it does boast a lot to be proud about, but with the caveat of needing a solid player base in order to maintain its replayability. Another game that will need some player-based support is the Battle Royale kart racer called Stampede Racing Royale. Developed by Sumo Studio and published by Secret Mode, this kart racer takes inspiration from Crash Team Racing and pits 60 racers against one another, with the top 40 moving on to the next track, where only 20 move on to race for the glory of being first. I will say that I felt like it was just kind of an alright game, and I won it on my first time, but I kept finding myself coming back to it again and again, to the point where I was even able to race against one of the devs and community managers for the game, where I actually got to take home the gold medal. Although not officially released yet, it will release soon into early access and will be free to play with a full release planned for winter of this year. From competing with others to win, to needing to work with others to survive, we move on to Demon Spore. Developed by Dinoboss and published by Knoll Games, Demon Spore is a top-down, twin-stick shooter where you're trying to improvise an escape plan before an evolving life form spreads out of control. While simple at times, there is an interesting map puzzle mechanic that will make you plan ahead while also trying to manage the rooms, your ammunition, and your party. It felt like there was always a group of people playing this game, and it took me and my friend waiting for a while before we got a chance to give it a go. And while I think it may get stale after a while, I do think that it would be fun enough to have as a couch co-op experience that'll keep you on the edge of your seat when it inevitably hits the fan. The last game I wanted to highlight at the expo was the game Wild Bastards. I'll try to keep this brief as I may end up actually doing a demo diving on this game later on, but developed by Blue Manchu and published by Maximum Entertainment, Wild Bastards is a roguelike shooter with tons of interesting ideas that go into it and a phenomenal art style, but it is honestly a bit hampered by the actual gameplay. I kept thinking about this game as it is super close to being a massive hit, but I do feel like it may need to have some changes made in order to really drive home what makes it unique and intriguing. Overall, I think the first year of IGN Live was mostly successful. There were some hiccups in the overall production with audio issues, a glaring lack of amenities based on the traffic, as there were only 4 picnic tables and a handful of round tables with like 20 chairs outside for food, as well as only having 2 bathrooms that could hold 3 people each, and given that there were 1,000 people who showed up, it's a little short-sighted. They were able to get some big names to show up for the first event, and there were a few announcements that were worth seeing, but it also felt like there was a clash with other events going on at the same time. First years are always going to be a little awkward, and I will say that my experience did get much better as I spent more time at the venue, and there are already talks of doing this again next year, so hopefully there'll be some more growth to be able to showcase even more games and exciting trailers, but I feel like I've rambled enough, so that will be it for this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and as always, be kind to one another. Another thanks goes out to Zach for helping me get to the event, as well as Null Games, Sumo Digital, and Secret Mode for being super great to talk to. I want to give a shout out to my patron supporters, Relativity, Naughty Dog is King, I'm paying you how much and I can't even have a neon green name in the Discord, and Kami Koyo, alongside all those who have subbed to the channel. I hope to do more variety stuff in the future, but regardless, I will see you soon.